9 lords battle over the 9 worlds. Use your powers wisely, for you want domination to bind them all. Hello and welcome to the Friday Fantasy Show from the Bottled Imp.
Exploring the realms of fantasy.
My name is Ken Boyter, and today we are taking a look at 9 Worlds. And this is a game designed by Richard Denning. You might have heard of his name because he is the organiser and I think the creator of UK Games Expo, which is the biggest tabletop and gaming and that kind of event in the UK. It takes place in Birmingham. He's designed a game. So let's take a look. 9 Worlds from Medusa Games. What exactly is it all about? But first, what's in the box? Well, as you can see, you get quite a lot of components, and I'm just going to say this straight off the bat. Beautiful. I really love the design. Lovely illustrations. The colour coordination is really nice. It's nice to see it like this all open. And for me, board gaming, kind of, you shouldn't judge a book or a game by its cover, but I kind of do, because I think that's the sort of thing that draws you into something in the first place to see if you really want to play it. So what do we get? We get as I say, a beautifully illustrated board, and it's it's quite a nice standard size. It's square, as you can see. There's not much else I can say about that. You also get 9 player cards, which are these, and these are double-sided, and one has blank space next to it, next to the image, and one has a special ability. So each, and they're actually in English and German, so each character does have a special ability. Now it does say that when you first play it, you might not want to play with a special ability, so you just get to grips with the basic rules. So therefore you'll be playing the character face up like that. So you get 9 of those, and then you get their corresponding matching tokens. So each comes with these stones, and these are, little gem stones, little plastic tokens. You each get an avatar, which is like a little standing stone, like Stonehenge, which is pretty cool. Nice little sort of Celtic or Viking inscription on them. And then each player will get 3 of these wooden, like solid colour wooden tokens. And as I say, you each get, I like the purple ones actually, you each get the different gems or stones as well. And then what you also get is each player, there's enough for these player aid cards, which will have all the information you need at a quick reference. And believe you me, they're very handy for this game. And I believe that's it, apart from you do get this turn marker, which is a sort of grey, bigger token made out of wood. And obviously you put that on round 1 to begin with. So that's what you get in the box. Apart from, I just remembered, you get these little tokens here. Now these are tokens that depict world powers. So as well as special abilities, there's also world powers. So each of these realms is a world, and they have a power that's unique to that world. And these little tokens depict who is actually in control of that world during the game, and that can change. Plus you get these little tokens here, which are simply to denote that you have, they're very small, aren't they? Very small. They are denote if you get past 100 scoring. It just means if you got one of these, then you're on 100, and then obviously you count the rest of the victory points on the track. And then we get this one here, which is a last stone token. Now these ones are very, very small, so obviously if you've got big sausage fingers, then they might be a bit fiddly to pick up, but apart from that, they are again nicely illustrated. And I believe that's what you get in the box. Of course, you do get the rulebook, which is a nice full colour rulebook that has little illustrations and little diagrams to explain the rules. And a nice touch is that they have done one in German as well. So obviously, if you know how to speak German, you might be reading these rules. So how does the game play, and what is the aim of the game? Well, it's an area control game at its heart. And the object is to be the Lord, the Viking Lord, who controls most or as many of the 9 worlds as possible, and you will be gaining victory points. So it's a victory point scoring system. So it's basically the one with the most victory points. But you score those through controlling worlds and various other ways of scoring, but we'll explain that as we get into the meat of the game. So the setup is pretty simple. And there are a few variants if it's a 2-player, because it's 2 to 6 players. So there's various different rules that will change depending on how many players you have. I've set it up for a 4-player. So what they recommend is that for a 4-player that you start with pre-chosen characters, and that is basically due to the sort of symmetric nature of where they are on the board, because you will be expanding out from your home world and trying to take over. So obviously if you've got ones that are right next to each other, then there's going to be a bit of argy-bargy, a bit of combat to begin with straight away. So this is a nice kind of way to set it up initially if you're a 4-player. Ordinarily, you would take the 9 cards and you will shuffle them randomly. Now, there are 3 different ways of playing initially. You've got the introductory game, which will last only 3 rounds. Or you've got the standard game, which lasts 6 rounds. Or you've got the more advanced game, which lasts 9 rounds. So there's a good variant there. So you will then, once you've got your character sheet, you will each grab your matching tokens. So you've got your stones. So you grab all the green stones and you will put them next to your player cards. So that's known as your reserve. Then you have the 3 tokens, the solid wooden tokens, and you'll put one on your scoring track here of how many action points you have. And you will also, and we'll go into exactly how many points you get in a second, you also put one of your stones onto your card. Now, when we played it without the special ability, so obviously this would be faced up the other way and it would be blank. So you put one stone here, and then you'll put your matching avatar, in this case it's the green one, and you'll put it onto the green home world. So you match the colour of your player card to your home world. So in this case it would be green, and you also put a stone. So everybody will start with their avatar and their stone on their matching colour home world. Hopefully that makes sense. So obviously green takes the green player one, and the blue takes the blue player character, and the red, etc, etc. What you'll also do is you will then determine who goes first. So if it's your first turn, first game, they do say that it's the one who owns the lowest numbered home world. So in this case it's blue because it's 2, so each world has got a number as well. If white was in play, then obviously it would be 1, etc, etc. So we're going 2, 3, 2, 3, if I got that wrong then, 4, yeah, I think I've set that up wrong. Anyway, or I've got that bit wrong. But anyway, so you determine who goes first. Then what you do is you will each put your other solid token onto the 0 scoring track, which runs all the way round here. That's the scoring track. So this is the turn order, and this is the marker for the round order as well. So you place that on 1. Everybody, as I said, gets a player guide. So that's a quick reference card. And then you are set to go. So what you do is, after the player order, because it does vary from subsequent turns, so if it was the second turn, it's not necessarily who's on the lowest world, it's actually how many stones they have. So if blue had 15, green had 13, yellow 10, it would be in that order, if you see what I mean. So it's the one with the highest stones. There are tie variants as well, so obviously if 2 have got 15, then there's various ways that you can work out who actually goes first. And in a 4-player game, there is an advantage or disadvantage, as we kind of found sometimes, it depends on your point of view, of going first. What you will do is, once the player order has been determined, you then go for the action phase. And this quick reference guide is really handy because obviously it keeps you on track. And so it says action point phase. So what you do is you determine how many action points that each player gets. And that determines a couple of things. 1, the number of players, and 2, whether or not you control your home world, and 3, whether or not you are the first player in a 4-player game. And there are a few different variants as well in a 5-player game, and I think in the 6-player game as well. So for example, in a 4-player game, they've got this little graph here, this little chart here, and it says that you get 6 points if you don't own your home world. And what that means is if you have lost control of it, so if you haven't got the most stones in your home world, then you do not control your home world. And then you will simply put 6 onto your track here. If, for example, you go first, you get a +1. But if you do own your home world, you also get 1. So the first player, if they own their home world, will get 7 points plus the extra bonus one for going first. So they'll be on 8, and in this case it's blue. The rest of them would be 7 action points. So once that's been determined, then you simply go through the action phase, and each player will use up all of their action points in one go. So say it's blue, for example, they will be going first. They have 8 action points, and you can spend them however you like, and you can repeat the same action. And there are various different actions that you can take, and they're all in the quick reference guide, and they are pretty simple to follow. I'll read a few of them out just to give you a flavour of what you can do. So say it was my go, I was blue. It says here I can move 1 stone from your player card to the world where your avatar is on. Now each player starts with 1 stone on their player card. And what that means is, okay, so I can spend, it's got the number of action points, so I'd spend 1 action point to do that. I'm going to move 1 stone from my player card to where my avatar is. And my avatar is here, or happens to be on my home world. So I've now got 2 onto that world. I can spend points to get them from my reserve to my player card. Now thematically, how I got that into my head was that these are kind of Vikings that haven't quite been trained properly yet. So they're kind of in reserve. Then when you spend, move, where it says here, move 1 of your stone from reserve to the player card, and that costs 1 point. So say I did that, I can move that there. Now I might want to spend 2 more points doing that, so they're ready to go. And then I might want to spend 2 more points putting them onto my home world, and that would be 2 more points. Now I could stop there if I wanted to, but you can't carry over any action points into the next round, so you might as well spend all of your action points. Another thing is here, you can move 1 stone from your player card to any world, and that costs 2, so I might think, actually I'm going to put that there onto any world. Other things are you can move 1 opponent stone between adjacent worlds, and that costs 2. So if I wanted to kind of unstable, distable. Who knows? If you want to monkey with one of your opponents, you could move 1 of their stones to another world, which means they would be losing control of that world. You can move another player's avatar to a world as well, and again really mess with their strategy. You can move 1 stone from Helheim, which is kind of like hell. So if one of your stones gets banished here, you don't want that to get banished there, because you'll be losing points. You can move it back to your reserve, or you can move someone else's to their reserve. You can also banish someone's stone to Helheim, and that means then they will be losing points unless they move it out. And there's some other things that you can do. So basically, what you'll be doing is you'll be spending your action points doing those actions as many times as you like, or as many times as your action points can do. You can do the same one, or you can do a combination. And of course, if you go first, you're not necessarily reacting to other people. You're setting the standard, if you like. You're setting up the game to begin with. Then the next player will do exactly the same. Now they might be reacting, so say they had one of their avatars move, they might think, oh, well, I'll have to spend points moving it back because I want to be back on my home world. Or they might move it onto your world because there are advantages for moving your avatar about. So obviously, if you come second, third or fourth, fifth or sixth, if it's a 6-player game, then you are going to be doing probably more reactive moves. And that is basically the action phase. Once everybody has their turn and spent all their action points, then it's the end of the action phase. Then what you do is you will go into battles and world powers. And what that means is a battle takes place if there are more than 5 stones on any of the worlds. So I'm going to put a few stones on here just to show you what I mean. So for example, you will then resolve them in number order. So if there's some on number 1, you'd do that first, number 2, number 3, number 4, etc., etc. So at the moment, as I've just set it up, there is only one world that you're going to be battling, and it's whoever has the most stones wins, down to 5. So for example, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So starting with the first player, whose current starting player it is. So if blue wasn't there, it would then start with red, as I've got it here. But it's blue. So we're going to take 1 stone off, and you put them in your reserve. So you're losing your troops back to your reserve, and it will cost you points to get them out again. But hey, that they've been killed, basically. And then the next player does it down to 5. So it'd be red. They remove 1, that goes back to theirs. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's it. That's the end of the battle. We're now down to 5 stones. Now, you then see who's got control. And at the moment, it's blue because they've got more stones. And it's as simple as that. If there's a tie, if there's an avatar involved, then whoever's avatar matches the colour, they would gain control. So what that means is, because I gain control, I won the battle, one of my lost soldiers would then go to Valhalla, and they would be getting scored when the scoring happens. So you kind of, you want victory, you can only put 1 in. So if you've lost 2 or 3 during a battle, you would only be putting 1 in. So that's like a little victory scoring point. So you'd be getting points for winning. Hurrah! But not only that, you will then be gaining control of it, and then you put one of your stones up into this circle here to say that you've gained control, or it's actually this one here, to gain control of this stone. Because say you moved away, it might not be totally obvious when you first glance at it. And what that means is you now gain control of that. If there are 5 stones, it always has to be 5 stones in there. Now obviously green and red might move out, and then you wouldn't have, you'd still have control, but you would lose the world power. Because once you gain control of a world, and again you have to have 5, so you could have filled it up with 5 of your blue ones, then you would just simply gain control. That means you activate the world power. So if there are no more battles to resolve, you go onto the world power. So let's look at this one. This one is a horn, and then you will simply, as a blue player, you will take the token, very small, very tiny tokens, you might not be able to see that, and you will then place that near or onto your player card, just to show that you actually own that world and you've got the world power. So then you will take a look. What does that do? The horn does retrieve. Okay, it says here, return 1 stone from Helheim to any world, or move 2 stones from reserve to the player card. So it's a little bonus. So I might say, yeah, I'm going to put 2 onto my playing card because it's all geared up for the next turn. Other ones are things like protect, may neither be affected nor use any of the world powers this turn. So if you gain control of the shield, then you will actually then say, yeah, I'm going to activate that world power. That means no other world power can mess with whoever owns this one here. So they can't move the stones, they can't move the avatar, you're protected. But that does mean you can't use any other world power, because you might have 2 or 3 world power as the game goes on and as you start gaining control of more worlds. Another one here says, destroy. Return 1 stone to the owner's player's reserve, or 2 to their cards. So you can start decreasing other people's power by removing stones. So these world powers can make a difference, and in fact in the games we played, they do make a difference. So it's a good idea to try and gain as many of these world powers as possible. And then once all the world powers have been resolved, and again, you don't have to use your world power, but it's a good idea to do that because you can start messing with the other players. Once those have been resolved, then you go into the Valhalla Phase, which means you will look to see if anyone is in here, and when they do, that you will be gaining score. You will score the points. So you will, I think it's 2 points for each stone that you have in there. Obviously, you'll only have 1 at a time, but you'll get 2 points. And then you will score, but you only score on various turns. If it's a 3-round game, you'll score right at the end. If it's a 6-round game, then you will score on round 3, and you'll also score at round 6. If it's a 9-round, then you will score on round 3, 6, and 9. So that again plays into the strategy, because you might want to be setting things up in round 1 and 2, knowing that you're scoring in round 3. And there are various different score points that obviously, will gain as you once you get into that scoring phase, you actually score them. You don't wait until the end of the game. Obviously, you score at the end of that round. So you get 1 point for each stone on your player card. You get 1 point for each world that you have a stone on. And you get 2 points for each stone anywhere in the 9 worlds. And you get 3 points for a world where you dispute control. So you might not actually have 5 on there, but say you had 2 and someone else has got 1 stone, you would get the points. And you get 5 points for a world that you control, so that's worth obviously controlling. And you get minus points for any stones that you have here in Helheim. So there's lots of different ways of scoring. And then turn end phase. And as I say, if you're playing a 3 game, end of turn 3, that would be the end of the game. If obviously it's end of turn 1, you'd carry on going. And that is basically how you play it. Now, initially, when we looked through the rules, it seemed quite complicated, and the rules could have been slightly clearer. But having worked out various different things, we got to grips with it fairly quickly. So it wasn't a major problem at all. It was just knowing exactly where to look in the rule book. Where you would have thought something was, it wasn't. It was kind of in a previous section. But obviously, if you read the rules from cover to cover, then you should have that covered. So it's not too bad a thing. So what it means is we actually started to really get into this in a way that initially doesn't seem obvious, because as it's world control, it has that feeling of building up, and you're building up your stones, your armies, and you're starting to branch out and move into other territories. And I quite like that feeling, because it's that feeling of slowly power growing. And we really enjoyed that. And I really enjoyed the fact that, yes, you've got action points, but you can spend them how you want. There's that nice freedom to it. And that's really important. It's crucial which turn order you are, because then you're either leading an attack or you'll be doing different moves depending on where you are. This is how I played it anyway. And so you could be reacting to things. So you might have, while you're waiting for your turn, a certain strategy that you're going for, and then something happens. Your avatar might get moved. Your stones might get moved. And then you think, right, I have to regroup, I have to rethink my strategy. And I like that because it keeps you on your toes. The other thing that we enjoyed is the world powers certainly did start to make a difference. And there was that fact that, yes, you don't get the world power straight away. Certainly turn 1, you're not going to get control of a world straight away. So my advice to you is, if you play it, is to try and get hold of these world powers, certainly, because they become very powerful. And once you have 2 or 3 of them, then you can start to dominate. And that's what the whole game is about, domination. What else do I like about it? I love the artwork. I think it's beautiful. I think it's a really well-constructed game. It's very solid in its mechanisms, very clean, it's very efficient. One thing I did find, though, was that the theme was kind of pasted on. And I think this then raises the issue of expectations. This is a Viking theme, and it does suit it, certainly. But you could strip it back, because really I did find it an abstract game in terms of you are moving stones and just trying to gain control of areas, which is obviously the whole point of the game. But you could overlay a different theme on it and it wouldn't change the mechanics. So it wasn't, the Viking theme wasn't as crucial. So my advice, yes, don't expect this to be all and out fighting where you've got extra cards to play and you can combat in a kind of, thrash combat explosive kind of way. This is more about strategy and tactics and kind of long-term planning. So this is, I guess, Vikings, if they, were out there, it goes against your expectations of what Vikings are. And obviously that's a stereotype anyway, but, hey, we all think that Vikings go out and pillage and plunder and fight, and that's kind of what they're doing, and drink. So it's not that kind of game. So as I say, it has more of an abstract feel to it. But if I'm going to play an abstract game, I would like it to look like this. So it's definitely got that feel to it. We really did enjoy it. And it was one of those games that you certainly wanted to play again. And it's one of those games that you certainly think you can start to master. And I think that's the beauty of it. So I like the efficiency of it. I like the design of it. It works. Nothing seemed broken, nothing seemed overpowered. We didn't actually play with the extra player abilities. I'm sure that would add yet another layer. And we did only play 6 rounds. We didn't go for the 9. And that was just enough. The 6 rounds was enough. I felt like I got into it. I learned a bit about the strategy and I could actually execute the strategy that I wanted to do. 9 would be fantastic. It would be a longer game, obviously. But I think it would, and certainly more players, it would kick off a lot earlier because you've got worlds that are right next to each other, as opposed to if it's a 4-player, you start opposite. So there is a lot going on with this game, and it is one of those games that once you pick up, it is relatively easy, but you're sitting there going, oh no, I wanted to do that, and now I have to do this, and how do I spend my points? So again, it has that excellent layer of strategy involved as well. I would recommend it. It is a lot of fun. It's certainly, if you like more abstract games, you definitely will enjoy this. This is 9 Worlds from Medusa Games. 9 Worlds! Ooh, I don't know why I did the Halloween sort of thing. Anyway, yeah, scary monsters. There we are, 9 Worlds from Medusa Games, designed by Richard Denning. I do recommend it. It's a good, solid strategy game. Lots of layers to it, and relatively simple to pick up. There we go, thank you so much for watching. Hopefully you've enjoyed it, and we do have lots of other board game reviews, as well as fantasy film and book reviews as well. Remember to subscribe and check out our Facebook page as well. Until next time, fellow imps, keep it unreal, especially if you're a Viking.